So what is hull rot? It's caused by fungal pathogens. The major pathogens are Rhizopus, stolonifer. This is a soil-borne fungus that's ubiquitous in many soils around the world, not just California. You can see as the hull splits, the fungus likes to get into there, and it grows on that injury, then it grows down inside, following the moisture as that hull is splitting and separating from the shell. And if you took a slide, made a slide of that black area, you'd see these round spores. These are the spores of Rhizopus stolonifer, and there's mycelium in there as well. And so typically, because California is very dry, we don't usually see things on the outside. And so you see this dark mycelial growth and spores along that suture where it split. And that's where, as you see in this upper fruit here, the splitting is the injury, and the spores being blown around are eventually end up there and start to colonize like a perfect environment. So that's where the disease triangle. Here's a senescent hull. Here's the moisture because it's splitting, self-injury, the splitting of maturation and senescence of the hull, and then the spores come up, and so there's our pathogen. So this is all visualized right here on that hull split stage. There's another pathogen that also causes hull rot, and typically Monolinia fructicola, our old brown rot friend, and it can also land on the hulls if there's unusual rain in June going into hull split. And we've had a few of those in the last 5 or 6 years where we get a rain in June. Well, the Monolinius spores, as you see on the far right, they're also floating in the air from whatever blossom blight type or green fruit rot that occurred in the orchard, and these spores continue to land on susceptible tissue like the hull of an almond. So those are the two major pathogens, but we also see in more recent times there are other organisms colonizing these hulls. Down south, Mohammed Yagmur down in Bakersfield is also seeing that Aspergillus Hull Rot, which is somewhat similar. It forms these dark spores in the bottom left of your screen. It has these dark blackish spores. It also forms between the shell and the inside of the hull. And you can compare and contrast to the Rhizopus on the right-hand side, upper right, where I just showed you this very similar, but it seems to be more like, it's not jet black. I call the Aspergillus like a jet black with these little individual tufts of spores, where the Rhizopus just fills up black spores all through that between the hull and the kernel. If you get rain or you get high humidity, you could actually see Rhizopus sporulating on the outer surface, which is highly unusual for California. And so the upper right images are what we typically see. By far, Rhizopus in our surveys, Rhizopus hull rot is most common around the entire state. But there are locations where Aspergillus can be more prominent, or where Monolinia can be more prominent, where maybe other stone fruits are being grown that might, like peaches or apricots, which might influence the inoculum levels next to the almond orchard.